safe and removed. You never get hung up. Never.
Bill Wetzel is a liar. I've never been to Nepal, but one can dream. Wednesday nights in 1992 were my favorite night of the week. I was 13, I was in the 8th grade, and Wednesday days were hellish. I suffered through 6 periods of class at Kennedy Middle School, PE, the worst of all, with its locker room humiliations for a girl in a training bra, not to mention the hallways between classes and lunch, anywhere outside the order of the classroom, where the teachers at least had some semblance of control, and I was relatively safe to be a skinny, spectacled, brace-faced know-it-all. And Wednesday days were the worst, because after the exhaustion of surviving a long day of 8th grade, then I had my after-school religious ed class at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. And my 2 worst bullies, Sarah G. and Katrina C., were in that class, where I was as big of, if not a bigger, know-it-all than I was at school. This is to say, I was a church nerd, and therefore the natural-born enemy of 8th grade mean girls. Sarah G. and Katrina C., with their high bangs and impeccable eyebrows and generous mascara, and the skinny jeans with the zippers on the ankles and the little denim bow on top. They were expert practitioners of psychological torture, as many 8th grade girls are. They knew my weakness. They knew how desperately I wanted to be cool. So in 1992, Wednesday days were the worst, but Wednesday nights were the best. Because on Wednesday nights, for about 2.5 to 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 glorious hours, I had the whole house to myself. My mom was the youth minister at St. Joseph's, and my dad also volunteered teaching CYM classes, which were held on Wednesday nights. With both parents gone, and my brother and I just old enough to have earned latchkey status, he would go skateboarding with his friends and get Del Taco or Carl's Jr. for dinner, and I would stay in my glorious solitude and eat a microwave dinner for one, budget gourmet sweet and sour chicken with rice and vegetables, which was delicious. I may have been home alone on Wednesday nights, but I was never lonely, because I had the company of Brenda and Brandon Walsh and their pals Dylan, Kelly, Donna, and Steve, and the somewhat nerdy, but still cooler than me, David Silver and Andrea Zuckerman. Beverly Hills 90210 gave me a framework for what I could expect the next year when I got to high school. Sex, driving, drinking, and drugs, juggling after-school jobs with studying and sports and working at the school paper, fighting with parents, fighting with friends. The kids of West Beverly were my cautionary tales, there to remind me that there would be lots of tough choices to grapple with when I got to high school. Choices with consequences. Beverly Hills 90210 offered me some guidance, but I also knew that the fictional West Beverly High could not provide me with the most accurate map I would need to navigate my way towards popularity, because Barstow High School is about as far as you can get from Beverly Hills and still be in Southern California. Not just in distance, but in culture, class, and climate. Barstow, in case you've never driven past it or ever read Hunter S. Thompson, is an isolated blue-collar town on the edge of the Mojave Desert. And living in Barstow, Beverly Hills 90210 wasn't just empty entertainment for me. It was escape. But also it was research. It provided me with valuable information about how I could be cool when I got to high school. Yet TV wasn't my only source for this valuable information. Another way I like to spend my lonely Wednesday nights was by raiding this box that lived on a shelf in the garage where my mom kept her high school history. I was very careful not to disturb the dust, layered desert thick on top, so Mom wouldn't suspect my snooping in her yearbooks and old photo albums from the 1960s in East LA. To me, in all those black and white portraits, girls and boys not much older than myself looked like women and men. They looked like adults in their blouses and dresses, and the boys in their suits with ties, their thick-framed glasses, and hairstyles that must have involved pomade for the men and hot curlers for the women. Sometimes I would slip the photos out of their plastic sleeves and read their messages of affection on the back. To Dee Dee, my mom's old nickname for her initials. Dee Dee Delgado looked like a model in her photos and yearbooks, radiant, senior class secretary, a cheerleader, a homecoming princess. By the time I was born, she'd been married to my dad for 7 years, and though he never stopped calling her Dee Dee, the only name other than Mom that I ever knew her by was Diane Madden. Those Wednesday nights in 1992 when I got to be home alone were how I survived the 8th grade. I know that middle school is a time of inner conflict and outer turmoil for just about every adolescent in the U.S. since the invention of middle school. But there was something else acutely painful in my pubescent identity crisis, something that had to do with my last name and the color of my skin, something about the difference between awkward church nerd me and the impeccably perfect Sarah Gutierrez and Katrina Cardenas. My Wednesday nights were my time to reflect in all that time I had to myself on who I was, who I wanted to be, and what kind of world I wanted to find myself in. I wanted to be in Beverly Hills, not Barstow. And I wanted to look like Dee Dee Delgado, not Melanie Madden. I was born to a Chicana mother and an Anglo father, which in some ways makes me a contradiction in terms, an oxymoron, if you will, a white person of color. I learned about oxymorons from my dad, who taught me my love of wordplay, my dad who called me dafter because daughter is spelled like laughter. I'm a writer, so I love wordplay, anagrams and palindromes and onomatopoeia and puns, but the oxymoron holds a very dear place in my heart. You've heard of oxymorons: jumbo shrimp, original copy, act naturally, alone together, small crowd. My dad was in the Army in Vietnam, so his favorite oxymoron was military intelligence. It was on a Wednesday night in April of 1992 when the cops who beat Rodney King almost to death were acquitted, and 90210 was preempted by the TV news coverage of LA rioting. And as I sat home alone and watched that violence, I felt violence threatening to break loose inside of me too, because I felt like I was straddling this invisible line, living with one foot each in a different world, and I didn't fully belong in either one. Sometimes it seemed like everything in the world was telling me, you can't be both, you have to choose, but no matter which side you choose, you lose. So in 1992, it was easiest to just pretend I didn't have a choice and let myself default not to who I am, but to how I am seen. My skin is light. My name is white. I grew up speaking only English. And I decided to ally myself with Aaron Spelling's world instead of the one I actually lived in. The way I saw it, I had better odds of becoming a Shannon Doherty or a Tori Spelling than ever becoming a Sarah G. or a Katrina C. or even a Dee Dee Delgado. Thank you.